Namaste. So notice how I cleverly took care of the whole non-action thing, because I didn't really want to talk about that in the reading. But I just point out that there was a book. Sylvia Boorstein is a teacher in the insight meditation tradition who has these great titles for her books that are kind of like movie trailers. You know how when a movie's kind of marginal, sometimes the trailer is the best part of the movie, especially a comedy. Sometimes you watch a movie trailer for a comedy and you've seen all the funny parts in the whole movie. And you just sense it. And you say, well, I don't really have to go to the movie now. And I don't want to bash Sylvia Boorstein, but sometimes her titles are the best part of the whole book, and you might not have to read it. And the older she gets, I think she says things that make my toes curl. But she had a book that was called Don't Just Do Something, Sit There. And she does that kind of thing. You might guess that she's Jewish, so she wrote a book called That's Funny, You Don't Look Buddhist. And so her titles are just great. But the whole non-action thing is kind of funny, and it's true. Don't just do something, sit there is really what's called for. But we live in this culture that says react, 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 react. Don't just sit there. Have an answer ready. Jump into action. And while it's true that we might miss the opportunity to make the best choice possible by stopping to think about it for even 15 seconds, probably not. And I'm a firm believer that we do reach a point where if no clear best choice arises, there are times when it's better to do something wrong than to do nothing at all. I mean, sometimes you just have to try. If the creek's arising and you're out of sandbags, you have to go with something. Whether that's try to put something else down there or get the people away from the creek. Something. And I thought right action of the Eightfold Path went very well with the prodigal son, because I think this is one of those parables or stories that's really, we jump into knowing what it means. And it also, I think, is important because we live in a time, and we've, ironically, been studying a book that talks a lot about fairness. Right? So what would be fair? You've got these two sons, and in the culture of the time, actually, on the father's demise, the older son would get a double share. So it would be divided up 3 ways, and the older would get 2. It's not entirely clear if that's what happened, but the one son decided to leave, and the father gave him his inheritance because he was apparently not coming back. And he went out and spent his money on loose women. There was other unspecified debauchery. It's kind of like in a diagnostic manual, there's loose women, debauchery not otherwise specified. But he went through his money in short order, and he said, holy cow, this is pretty miserable, no fun being broke. I'll go back home and I'll take what's coming to me, and I'll just work as a servant, but at least I'll have food in my stomach. And he goes back home, and his father is happy to see him, as we read, welcomes him back, has the robe, the family robe put on him, restores him to honor, has a banquet for him, and his brother is pretty mightily ticked off, and in contemporary times he would say, that's not fair. But notice what the father doesn't do is say, well, we're going to split up what's left of the inheritance and give Mr. Debauchery, not otherwise specified, another crack at the inheritance. The other thing he doesn't do is he doesn't say, out of luck. There was a little meme on Facebook this week of John Dominic Crossan, who's a Roman Catholic biblical scholar.
Yeah.
And it said, and I'll probably screw up the quote, but he said, it's not the case that ancient people were stupid and wrote literal accounts and were smart and see that they're symbolic or metaphorical. It's the case that ancient people were smart and wrote metaphorical accounts and we're stupid and try and read them literally. And so this isn't just a story about a wealthy landowner and two sons. It's a story about ultimately our relationship to God. And even more broadly, I would say in an interspiritual context, are we okay? Whatever God is, can we be separated from God's love? Can we, in fundamentalist terms, can we be so backslidden that we're now beyond redemption? Can we screw it up so bad that we're outside of love's reach? You can phrase it any number of ways. But ultimately the question is there a point of no return that we can cross? And the answer that the story gives is absolutely not. Period. End of discussion. And what's amazing to me is that we don't get it. Is that it seems too good to be true. And so we sit around and do, when I worked in the hospitals, I used to call this yeah-butting. And I'd say to somebody, you could just do X. They go, yeah, but, you could solve all your problems, your lights are turned off, you could pay your electric bill. Yeah, but then I'd have to keep paying it. And it's like, and no matter what, clear, simple, black and white, but the electric bill's only $20, dude, isn't it? Yeah, but, and there's something about us. It's just too good to be true. And so, what's the first thing Christian folks do is they go scurrying back to the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, which are wonderful books. And they have no idea how to read them, because they have no idea the cultural context. And so they grab things they can and pull them out of there, and they say, oh, see, here, right here. This here says, because I didn't stone my children to death when they disobeyed me, I'm out. And it's all the obscure, and it's all wrested from its context. And it's all things earlier in the religious development of humanity. And what it still can't get you around are these very clear stories. Which doesn't mean, and I think sometimes this is what ties people up, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be times when we have to make a decision. Because life is about making decisions. And one of those decisions might be deciding to do nothing. But what makes making the decision easier is that no matter what choice we make, it doesn't move us outside the reach of love. No matter how horrific the choice might be, it doesn't move us outside the reach of love. Yesterday, I was doing a little Ubering during the Shamrock Shuffle, and picked up a young woman, which always sounds wonderful, on Water Street, and she was going to an antique store on 15th and Pierce. And she said how she was in town for a birthday party and something with friends or something else. I said, oh, so you're not from around these parts? And no, she was from Minnesota. And I said, oh, so you don't know the neighborhood where you're going, huh? And she said, no, I was thinking of walking, And I said, well, see, here's the thing. And we're driving over down National. And, it's not terrible around here, but a woman walking along down National Avenue, and I'm not saying anything about how you look, you know, or who you are. You look just fine, but there's some assumptions that are made about young women walking down National Avenue, and that they might be, you know, at work, and so you might have some people roll down their window and offer you employment, and you know, so you might want to call your Uber from inside the antique shop. And as I was telling her this, we came across the police tape on about 9th or 10th and National. It came from a double murder, and the murderer, it was a guy who owns National Hall down there. It was his daughter had killed her stepmother basically, and her stepbrother, and then she went down to McKinley Marina and killed herself. And the part of us that struggles is and another part of me that struggles, and I don't think I'm alone, so that's why I'm bold enough to say the part of us that struggles, is we say, yeah, but what about that? But what about that? What about her? Even her? And for me, the answer is nobody thinking clearly is going to do that. And one of the things that every religious tradition or spiritual tradition says is that whatever word they use for sin, what's wrapped up in sin is intention and free will. And so, if you can't think clearly, if you're not thinking rationally, or if I hold a gun to someone's head and tell them to shoot this person, there's no free will involved there. This is under duress. And so there are circumstances where something horrific happens. Now, as the story unfolds, this gentleman's daughter, who did the shooting before she killed herself, he had, it seems like, told her she had to leave their house and gave her $1,500 to find her own place, and she must have snapped. Because that isn't anything that normally would lead people to kill people. There aren't too many things that normally lead people to kill people. And for as much as we want to say, that makes you unacceptable, that must make you unacceptable, these stories keep calling us back to the fact that nothing can. And it's always funny when you put on that little square collar that I sometimes wear, and you show up at somebody's house. It's almost like, did any of you see the Birdcage movie with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane? Remember when their son's daughter, whose father was Gene Hackman, that played the congressman, they were coming to visit, and so they were trying to get all the gayness out of the house. And like they had that one statue with the erection, and Robin Williams grabbed it by the penis, and they were trying to like hide all the statues and stuff. Well, you show up at somebody's house with a collar on, and you can tell they're looking around, okay, what's offensive in here? What can we wash out of here? And the truth is, you know, nothing needs to be washed out, because truly, it's all okay. There's nothing that you can have in your house that stories like this one tell you. There's nothing you can have in your house that make it not okay. And if we could just for once relax into that, imagine all the stress that we could let go. We might even start to feel love. We might even start to be able to let go of some of our anger. We might even start to move into being peaceful. And when we see other people do stupid things, we all do stupid things, we could just cut ourselves and them some slack and say, you know what? Yeah, it's not great, but it's okay. It's all right. It's always all right.